The budget mid-range smartphone market becomes more and more competitive each year. When it comes to phones priced under 15,000 pesos specifically, there are a lot of choices to choose from in 2024 so far. Most of them are well packaged too, offering decent specs and performance for what you're paying brand new. What up guys, Mikael here from Yugatech, and today we are checking out another new entry into that already competitive smartphone segment, the Vivo Y100. Not only does it look great, but it is quite affordable too, starting at only 12,499 pesos for the 8 plus 128 gig variant. But there are some trade-offs, especially if you compare it to its competitors. Still, the question remains, how will the new Vivo Y100 fare against the rest of the smartphones in its segment? Let's dive in. There's no question that the Vivo Y100 looks great, especially in this breeze green colorway. If this color is too loud for you, there is another more subtle color option available called crystal black. One reason to pick the breeze green color is because of the color shift effect, which is not found in the black colorway. When exposed to UV light or sunlight, the phone changes to a deep shade of green, which matches the swirl effects on the back panel. Because of the matte finish of the panel, it's relatively smudge resistant too. However, the same can't be said about the glossy finish around the camera modules. With that, you can use the phone without a case just to show off how nice this back panel actually looks like. In terms of build, we initially thought that the back panel was made out of a polycarbonate material, just like the frame. However, Vivo does claim that the color-changing feature is thanks to the use of color-changing fluorite AG glass. So yes, it's actually made out of glass. It seems relatively scratch-resistant too, after using it without a case and being bunched up together with all other stuff in our bags. And it's not the slimmest nor the lightest smartphone in the market, but overall, the phone does feel sturdy and easy to use with one hand. On the right side of the device, you'll find the volume rocker and power button. At the bottom is the USB-C port, loudspeaker grill, and the dual nano SIM card tray that features a hybrid microSD card slot for expandable storage. At the top, there's only a secondary microphone, while the earpiece doubles as a loudspeaker as well. So yes, you do have stereo speakers on the Vivo Y100, and it even gets an IP54 dust and splash resistance rating. One of our favorite aspects from the Vivo Y100 is its display. We get a 6.67-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED display that features a 120Hz refresh rate, and the bezels around the display are relatively thin, but the top and bottom portions are a bit thicker. Still, it's not something users will really mind in everyday use. As expected from an AMOLED display, it outputs vivid colors and deep blacks, which makes for a great and immersive viewing experience. With the 120Hz refresh rate, we also get smooth animations all around. This applies to watching high refresh rate videos or even just casually browsing on social media, the web, and in the interface itself. However, it's the gamers who will really be able to benefit from the 120Hz refresh rate, which we'll touch up on later. What surprised us is how bright the screen can get. The Vivo Y100's display gets a peak brightness of 1800 nits, which is perhaps one of the brightest in its class. For reference, most phones in this price range usually have a peak brightness of around 950 to 1200 nits. When using it out in the sun, we could easily see everything on the screen, which is a good thing, let's say if you need to take photos or shoot videos with the device in the 40-degree heat. As for the speakers, they're pretty good since they're high-res certified. The dual stereo speakers have the capability to get very loud. Past 100% volume, users get the ability to jump to 200 and even 300% volume with Audio Booster. The audio clarity doesn't get better in these higher volumes, but highs and mids are definitely boosted, with it peaking at 300%, which can be a good thing when listening to dialogue-heavy media like a podcast. Either way, speaker quality on the Vivo Y100 is, as the kids are saying nowadays, mid. But overall display quality is good. For cameras, the Vivo Y100 features a dual rear camera highlighted by a 50-megapixel main shooter and a 2-megapixel depth sensor, and as for the third lens, Vivo says that it is an anti-flicker sensor. In the punch hole in front resides an 8-megapixel selfie camera. The image quality produced by the cameras aren't the best. In the day or in well-lit environments, it produces decent images which are relatively sharp with good contrast. But if you pixel peep, you'll notice that the clarity isn't technically the best. It's a similar experience when you're taking photos at night or in low light. You end up losing a lot of detail and the photo isn't as sharp. Specifically, we feel like the camera adds a noise reduction filter or pass that's kind of aggressive after the fact to reduce the grain from the overall image taken. And yes, we did have beautification filters turned off for the most part. But still, if you don't have so much of a problem with the noise reduction, then the photos do look decent enough. Although we would recommend editing them in post via Lightroom Mobile or your choice of photo editing software to make the images look even better. You can expect similar outputs in terms of video. The maximum video recording capability of the vivo Y100 is 1080p at 60 frames per second. The videos are decent enough if you just want to record content. There's no image stabilization either, so you need to keep a steady hand when you're shooting, otherwise you get shaky videos. But like the photos, these will be decent enough if you just want to create content and post them to your stories or something alike. So far, the vivo Y100 has been great in terms of design, display, and kinda good for audio. While the cameras could be better, it is still quite usable and not to mention decent. One aspect that kinda did disappoint with the Y100 is its chipset. Under the hood of the vivo Y100 is a Snapdragon 685 4G chipset along with 8GB of RAM and up to 256GB of internal storage. If you do need more storage space, you can expand it via the aforementioned microSD card slot in sacrifice of your second SIM. It's not the most powerful chipset out there and it shows. If you're planning to use the phone mainly to do work such as replying to emails, browsing social media, and even watching videos, then you will actually just be fine. But the lack in performance shows, especially when you are playing games on the device. From our experience, it can run the usual host of light games such as Mobile Legends and Asphalt 9 without any issues. However, graphic-intensive titles have a much tougher time on the device. Specifically, the Y100 can run Genshin Impact at low settings, with occasional frame rate drops and stutters still present, especially when there is a lot going on in-game. We even tried setting it to max settings at 60 frames per second, and well, don't bother trying to play in those settings. There is a game booster feature that squeezes out extra juice, but that didn't seem to help with Genshin. Not to mention, the phone heated up quite fast while running Genshin Impact after around 30 minutes of playtime. So while you can play games on the vivo Y100, I would not recommend running graphic-intensive titles such as Genshin and the like, but with lighter games, you should be just fine. To give you guys a better idea of how the phone performs, check out our benchmark scores here. The vivo Y100 runs on Android 14 skinned with FunTouch OS 14 on top. FunTouch OS is a nice and simple interface to use, and it even gives you several features such as a hidden taskbar on the side to quickly go through different apps. There are also several customization options available to give users a more personal touch. Aside from changing the themes, you can even go to the settings and change the graphics and animations when you are charging the phone, and more. But perhaps the biggest and most useful feature Vivo added to this phone is in terms of battery life. What we didn't like about the vivo Y100 is the amount of bloatware it came with, and there is a lot. Most of the apps that came pre-installed, we ended up uninstalling to free up space. Like I mentioned earlier, the battery life of the vivo Y100 is also one of the phone's strong suits. It packs a 5,000 mAh battery pack, but it surprisingly lasts a very long time. During our time with the phone, the Y100 lasted us more than a day despite being used to capture content, watch videos, and play games. Playing Genshin Impact did seem to use much more battery life given that the phone noticeably warms up. And as mentioned earlier, there are several features that users can take advantage of to extend battery life. In the battery saver mode alone, you can already tweak several features on how to do this. Once the battery drops down to 5%, users can even activate super battery saving mode to help make the phone last a little bit longer. When you do need to recharge, the vivo Y100 also comes with an 80-watt fast charger in the box. In terms of connectivity, you are limited to just 4G. Aside from that, you get the usual suite of features such as dual-band Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5, GPS, and NFC. Overall, the vivo Y100 does have its strengths and weaknesses. With a starting price of 12,499 pesos for the 8 plus 128 gig config, it is an affordable smartphone for someone that puts value in style, a beautiful display, good enough stereo audio, and long battery life. The only downside to the Y100 is that the performance can be a bit lacking if you want to play games. Not to mention, we don't get 5G support for data connectivity, and the camera quality is a bit lackluster. Considering how competitive this segment of the Vivo Y100 is in, it might have a hard time attracting some buyers given the other choices out there. But for those who are aiming for the essentials with a little extra, this handset fits that category. So, what do you guys think of the Vivo Y100? Let us know in the comment section below. But if you enjoyed this video or found it informative, or if it helped you make a purchasing decision, be sure to smack that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell icon so you get notified of our future uploads. Be sure to visit yugatech.com and follow us on our socials. That is Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok for the latest tech news and reviews. Once again, this has been Miguel. This has been the Vivo Y100, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.